So I built an app, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. It's not live on Google Play yet, and it's not on Apple Store. I don't even know how to code. So I had an idea, and I built something that looks and feels and acts like an app. Not knowing how to code because I'm not a developer, I used ChatGPT and a tool called Lovable, which is a vibe coding or generative coding program where you type in what you want and it develops it for you. And this whole video series channel, in this video itself, is basically me realizing how my approach broke down in several different areas, the mistakes that I made. And one of the mistakes that I made was I did not record any of this when I got started. I did not set out with the intent to build a channel around this, but others told me that people could learn from my mistakes, and I'm always happy and willing to share my mistakes because I'm really good at making them. If you're a beginner, if you want to do this for real, this is what it actually looks like. So, I'm not a developer. I had to use tools available to me. I have my progress on a website, Little Useful Apps. I registered this. This is my website. It will continue to grow. I used AWS to register this domain for $12. It is hosted on GitHub Pages, which is the repository for my application, so it works hand in hand. Those are not all free services. I'm going to outline, I'll give full transparency into what cost what. The domain was $12. GitHub Pages for the web hosting is free. While I've done HTML in the past, this was generated with AI just because it's a lot easier to type, I want this, do this, and get the full HTML. I will make tweaks as we go. Some of the wording is a little bit off, and we'll talk about that. The entirety of this project had made me realize that I didn't learn to code, and I didn't really code. What I did was mediate a conversation between two different entities that were mostly sentient and didn't quite always articulate things the way that I wanted them to articulate. So it was a learning for me in terms of how I can get better expressing ideas. What I would say the biggest thing that I had a problem with was not giving full enough text prompts. What that led to was series of iterations. Series, that's not the right word. Lots and lots of different iterations. The amount of time I've spent on this isn't necessarily I took 18 hours across 3 weeks to build this. I took countless amounts of time waiting for prompts to reconcile what I had said, small suggestions, pushes to the app, regeneration of said app, testing of said app. So I'm going to talk more about that process, and that's the start of things with ChatGPT. I'm going to skim through this because there's no need to read all of this to you. If you're interested, by all means put in the comments, and I will gladly send you transcripts from this. And I just want to give you the nuts and bolts of how this whole thing went. And the first start of it was, hey, I want to go to Lovable, and I want to generate a small little phone app. I'm okay with ads. I'm okay with pay 99 cents to get rid of ads. That's where we started. I hadn't even arrived at the idea of Tabfare, which is a bill splitting app. That's what I developed. And if you scroll through, which I will, this is basically me going back and forth with ChatGPT, or my friend Chad, as I like to say, and arriving at what it is that I'm trying to develop. Okay, it's got some screenshots for ideas. It's got, do you want to do A, B, and C? What about this? How's that? And we just go back and forth like a friend talking to another friend. Side note, I am fully aware that it is not an actual person and that ChatGPT is just a whole bunch of code. That said, if I keep going through, I'll go back up to here. I got to a point where I said, okay, these are the free features that I want. These are the paid features. Just to let you know, I had a realization after doing some more apps and using more apps, and I realized I cannot stand ads in my games where they just pop up all the time. I did not want to force people to pay. So what I did was I made sure that I developed an application that is fully functional for free. The only thing the 99-cent upgrade does is get you saved preferences and an additional ability to split by custom percents. That's it. You can use the application as it stands today for free indefinitely. There's no subscriptions, no ads, none of that. I don't save your data. I don't transmit your data. It's a free little tool to split out your bill amongst friends. That said, I took this and I took Lovable, which, by the way, that's $25 a month, and ChatGPT is $20. I'll give you the ongoing list in just a moment. But the original iteration was fast split. It told me what to do, and just keep in mind the stuff to the right that you're seeing in the preview. This is the current state. It did not start this way, and I'm going to show you all the different places where we had to go back and forth to get it to this state. But the idea is you select where you are, dollar amount, how many people you had in your party, what kind of tax you want. I'm just making stuff up. Percent post. So these little elements here, that's what gets saved in the Pro version. So it doesn't change the functionality. It doesn't give you more options other than the custom splitting. But the idea is you can still evenly split. And what I just introduced now is the ability to add contacts. But that's the general idea, and it just tells you who can be here. And I can change this to Bob, and I can change person 2 to Susie, or again, I can pull in people from my contacts list. So that's the current state of things. But where things started was, hey, that's a cool concept. Let's go through, and I'm saying I want these items. It's starting to build the scaffolding, and then once it got to that point, it made me realize I kind of have an app, but how on earth do I get it to people on Google? Oops. So that led me to have to download a different program called Android Studio. This is for free. This allows you to take your code base and generate Google Play apps, and then also set up an emulator. I did a Pixel, but you have a variety of different phones that you can emulate so that you can see what it would look like on that actual device. This led to great joy, but also a ton of issues that I encountered, because what you're seeing over in Lovable as a preview is a web-based version. What you're seeing in this version here is your phone-based emulation. That means that some functionality is different between the two, such as billing, such as bringing in contacts, such as sending messages. There are elements that load differently, so you need to account for that when you're building out your app. You need to understand that there's two different types of testing that you have to do. The preview is great. It's more real time. Android Studio is free, and it lets you test it kind of in the wild, as it were. So anyway, I went back and forth quite a few times, and then what I did was I created a GitHub for this, because that's one of the things that I needed to do. I needed to have a GitHub that I could pull down, generate in the files with Android Studio, and then push those up to Google Play. Google Play required a developer account, $25 one time, and that is actually why I did not go with Apple. Apple wanted $100 or $99 per year for developer, and I did not think that it would be worth my while to develop that. Completely sight unseen, untested, no real idea of whether or not I'd get one paid option or even 3 free downloads. So with that said, I made the choice to just focus on Google Play. The future may change. I'm planning on developing more apps. I'm developing more stuff in the future that I'll record fully, start to finish. But for now, I made the choice not to go Apple. And so Android Studio was how I would arrive at creating the right application files. I kept going through. Can I do this? Can I do that? Iterate. I would eventually get to a certain point where it wasn't enough for Lovable, and it was absolutely driving me crazy to try to move and iterate things. Graphics, I find, are very difficult for ChatGPT systems to do correctly. What I found with ChatGPT is that the ChatGPT and other generative AI photo imaging softwares like that, they can't reuse elements that have already been built. So if you copy paste an image and say create me an icon like this, it can't use what you already have as a layer. It has to recreate it. That's why if you maintain a thread and you stay within that same thread, you're likely to get more similar results. But when it comes to just fresh prompts on different tabs and different systems, it will always regenerate a new version of what you're describing. And I want to show that when it comes to my website and what I developed. This is Canva, another tool. They have free and they have paid. There's 3 different versions. There were more. And if you look at my channel, I actually have yet another version of that. You'll also notice that there's no videos here yet because you're watching the first. These are the apps so far that I've got. So I've got ChatGPT, and that's for the impetus of the idea and refining the idea and break fix. Then I have Lovable. This is where the coding actually takes place, where the platform actually gets developed, and I basically get to preview my app, at which point I push that to GitHub. I pull it down. I use Android Studio. I develop it. In terms of marketing, information, privacy policies, things like that, that all goes on my website, which is littleusefulapps.com. That was registered with AWS. As a one-time yearly, I think it's $12. Domains basically run anywhere between $12 to $15 for standard top-level domains. So that's a one-time thing. And then the Google Play developer is $25. So at the time of recording this, I'm about $82 in the hole. Again, in context to why I didn't want to go for Apple. I did not feel comfortable dropping several hundreds of dollars on this, not even knowing if I was going to end up with a complete product. So that's why I chose what I chose. So just to recap, I'm putting end product up on here on my website. I started, and it started iterating through ChatGPT. Here's how I need things split out, what's behind paywall, what's not. So after we get to a certain point, let's write the prompt again, right? But change the byline, change the tag, etc. Then I would come back through. Can we fix this? Can you tweak this, right? This needs to be here. Okay, there's an update, but can you do this? I need to change this. This needs to change. And then it gave me the steps on how to push it. Can you match this branding? Can you do this? Can you iterate that? So it's ping pong between 2 different beings that are mostly there. Sorry, not really beings, entities. Again, full disclaimer, I know they're just systems. They're not real people. But my overlords will be thrilled. So it's just a whole bunch of different iterations there. And then what ended up happening was I would eventually get to a point where I would put it into Google Play App Store. And that's a whole different process that we'll cover in the next video, but a few surprises on that one. So, again, if you want me to give you all of the narration between the two, it's just, it's an experience because I kept hitting walls and having to backtrack, and during several points, I wasn't sure whether or not I was actually doing what I needed to be doing. It just felt very messy because it really was. And so it hasn't really fully shipped yet, but that's kind of the point, right? This is me just documenting my process and where I kind of sit. It's not a highlight reel. If you couldn't tell that by now, it's not a highlight reel. I'm building small, useful apps. Well, I think that they're useful. And I'm learning as I go, and I'm just recording my journey. So, if you're also trying to build something, you're not really sure what you're doing, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. So I'm going to keep documenting all this, the mistakes, the confusion, the small little changes that made things happen, So we'll see you next time.